morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and thanks for tuning in to the Dealer Insights podcast, where we go under the hood, bumper to bumper, and just about everywhere in between, discussing topics important to dealers of all types and sizes. Your time is valuable, so thanks for riding along for this episode of Dealer Insights.
Welcome back to Dealer Insights. It's Sean and Vinny, right? We're back. Another episode. Yeah. It's football season, Vinny.
Yes, it is.
Pretty exciting. It's already that time of year.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with Mac Jones.
Oh, yeah.
We lost.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good game.
It was.
Anyway, hey, Dealer Insights, we can talk about football. We can talk about your favorite team. We can talk about Vinny's favorite team, which would be the New England Patriots, which absolutely broke my heart when they beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. But instead, we want to talk a little bit more about customer service. This is a topic that should never get old. In our industry, it should never get old. It just shouldn't. And we have a lot of people that have been talking about it for a long time. We talk about the service experience. We talk about the sales experience. We don't talk enough about the dealership service experience for the customer, but we're going to get into some of that today. And the first place I just want to start with you, Vinny, because you do a lot of training and prepping people, and you've done it both in retail. So all of the dealers that tune into this, all the people that are interested in what dealers should do and how they should do it. You've done this both on the retail side, and then you built a whole company around making sure people are empowered and prepared just to answer questions, maybe all the questions. Tell me your thoughts on that. Just preparing people so that they're taking care of a customer and the outcome is great experience.
Yep. So the way I look at our business, or any business for that matter, is I obviously have 27 years of experience in the automotive industry. I can't expect to hire somebody off the street and expect them to have the same abilities I have to interact with a customer. So you train and onboard, which is obviously really, really important part of any business. And you give them that overview and a large dose of training information about what they can expect and how, the business runs and what our expectations for them are and all that. The challenge with that is there's like three different sections of the brain. That's like your logical section where you're going to input that information. But the experience comes from the emotional side of your brain, where you have failure and you don't do something right and you got to, fix that. So that's where management and training and trainers, where we have trainers and managers that have lots of experience that can, sit side by side with new employees and get them up to speed. But, it's funny because everybody thinks handling a lead, everybody with experience, let's say, that's been in the business thinks that handling a lead or call is easy and I can do it better. Well, yeah, you can, but you can't handle 1,000 leads or 1,000 phone calls. So you need
and from multiple sources.
Correct. So the emotions come from, I'm talking to Sean, maybe I follow the script, and then you ask me some curveball question. It's like, how do you handle that? So we show them how to overcome that. I don't have that information in front of me, but I can have it for you when you're ready. And that customer experience aspect of it is really, really important. So now there's a lot of AI out there that says that, we can replace humans. The third section of the brain, so it goes logical and emotional. And then the third section is like, it's at the stem of your brain, and it's basically for critical thinking and intuition and stuff like that, which, of all the years of trained salespeople, I'm not sure everybody possesses that ability.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You got to think on your feet, in a lot of situations, and you got to come up with ideas and solutions for the customer that may not be something that you've experienced before or you're new. So the challenge is for dealers, how do you show patience with your employees and bring them along the right way so they become experts? There are certain people out there that have natural ability, Sean, that come in and do well right away. But finding those people is really, really hard. So onboarding is key in recruiting. Training is obviously something. I mean, again, you and I talk about this all the time. Some of the stuff I bring up is like common sense, but it's like there have to be a focus if you want to be a successfully run dealership or company or what have you. So it's recruiting, training, huge importance in training, and then accountability and making sure that you have a process. Process can make up for a lot of problems with inexperienced employees. If you give them a very well-defined process that they follow, they know when to get somebody with that experience involved with that customer. And that's how we have it set up here at Strolid, is we have the recruiting really well-defined. We have the training well-defined. We have our management team with the experience to handle things that are inexperienced people. And we don't have a lot of inexperienced. We have a lot of experienced agents as well, but we're growing, so we're adding people. And that allows us to scale our business, and giving them information to answer questions is another thing we were going to talk about today, but that's critical.
Well, so lots of great stuff in there. It's funny that you mentioned, like, we talk about this all the time and it seems like it's, 101. But the truth about this is we do talk about things more than just one time. But it's kind of like, and you and I are both, we both have coached our kids in football and baseball and various sports. You more football, me more baseball. But there's something that happens in every sport. There's fundamentals, right? And I know those fundamentals in baseball better than I know them in football. But you drill them over and over and over and over and over. When you're teaching a kid to catch a pop fly, you're not teaching them how to do it with one hand, right? You're not teaching them Willie Mays, blazing through the outfield, fielding ground balls, all these things. There's a certain way to handle all these things.
Yeah, I was watching Hard Knocks on the Jets recently, and one of the coaches was talking about that. The amount of plays you get in a game, it's like 10 times the amount of plays you get in practice. In other words, in a week, you get 10 times the amount of plays in practice, and some don't even see the field during a game, but they're still practicing to get to that level so they can be on the field. You need that training ground. You have to have it. Otherwise, you are not going to be successful. And you're going to be that person that says, my people are terrible. And I wish I had that rock star sales guy that could walk through the door and help me sell more cars. It's like, well, if he's a rock star or she's a rock star salesperson, chances are they're not going to walk through your door looking for a job because they got one.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So you don't want to be, to use another football analogy, somebody criticized Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. He had a terrible game, first game of the season. I know for all of you people that listen and watch, they don't care about football. The point being is, if you're not training, if you're not equipped, if you're not empowered, it's not going to happen.
And even if you are trained and equipped and empowered, you're going to make mistakes and have a bad day.
Because nobody's perfect,
except for the robots, they can be perfect, right? Eventually,
that's what they want us to believe. But that's a good tie-in. So we this is another topic that comes up a lot, but I think it's important. We are talking about the service experience, the customer service experience, empowering your people to answer the right questions on all the questions, and this means that you have to prepare them for questions that might be unique to the service or the source that they came from, because maybe they came out of the Auto Trader environment. Maybe they came right off your website. Maybe they came off of a specific place in your website. But there's another little wrinkle in this that I think's still very fascinating, and that's digital retailing tools. And you have shared some of these comments with me before, where I think that, and I would not disagree, that you believe that the digital retailing tools, especially during the pandemic at mass adoption, everyone needs one. Dealers really didn't think through the fact that the digital retailing tools are all using a logic that it doesn't require any kind of emotional feeling. Like, it's just different than the human experience. I'd love to get a little bit more of your thoughts on that part, because it does tie into the experience that people are having with your store.
100%. Yeah. Well, so selling is emotion. And so do we remove selling? A lot of people give selling a negative connotation. I don't. I'm a salesperson. I consider myself to be a good manager. I'm process orientated because of what I said earlier. It's important to have a process, especially if you're trying to grow a business and grow a team. But selling is emotion, and it's an emotional withdrawal from the customer to speak to a salesperson when a salesperson asks a question, and the salesperson needs to be able to understand that emotion. If a customer's upset, they want something. You don't get upset about something unless you want it. So to be able to read that, right? That's something it's hard to train a new person that never sold before. That's why a lot of businesses are looking for employees that have sales experience, because that means that they've had that experience before and they know how to deal with those experiences. So with that said, customer experience and selling both require an identification of emotion. And the logic, everybody thinks that logic can sell, and it doesn't. Because why aren't more people pressing the buy it now button? Because it's an emotional decision. It's a big decision. And do I trust this tool? Do I trust that everything's going to go well on the other end? Maybe in time people become more comfortable with it, like me with Amazon. I buy everything on Amazon because I don't like going into a store. But when I'm going to buy a car, I call one of my dealers. I always buy from one of my dealers and hey, I need a car. I don't go on the website and build out a tool. Now, with that said, a friend of mine the other day said, if you want to get a good value on your trade, go to Carvana, CarMax, or whatever. And he's right. And I think dealers really need to understand that information. They're making it easier for for customers to get, which is one of the reasons why they're successful. Why aren't your people empowered to have that same information? Why are we still trying to give somebody $3,000 for a trade when CarMax is, because it has a blown engine, and CarMax is giving them $10,000 for the same car?
Mm-hmm.
Because, we think we got a captive audience, and we don't. This thing 20 years ago came around called the internet. It gave people more information. So the logic's out the window because the information's everywhere, except for in the salesperson's hands, unfortunately, or the BDC person's hands. So how do we transition that information to our people, just like the digital retailing tools have? And believe me when I tell you, I'm not making light of this, because I know there's lots of obstacles even with digital retailing tools that dealers have fits with. But if it's a machine giving you information about a car that's available or not, it's different than if a human being says that car. I'll give you an example. We made a mistake the other day. One of our people told a person that they could give that they could co-sign for their 17-year-old. Which isn't true. You need to be 18 to get the contract. So we messed up. Luckily, the dealer caught that on the confirmation. They weren't happy with us, but we made a mistake, kind of like Joe Burrow the other day, But yeah, what are the chances that mother was on line, and I guess the system, when he put in the date of birth, would probably rejected it or something. I don't know, but those are one of the nuances that somebody with experience would be able to answer really quickly, whereas a digital retailing tool would take you to go through all these steps to find out that you can't get that.
Yeah.
Know what I'm saying?
Well, and there are always anomalies, Mm-hmm. I mean, you already said it just a few minutes ago. The world isn't perfect. People aren't, because people are in it, right? It's
right.
So everybody makes mistakes, but interesting. I
guess that's a good question, though. I don't want to get too deep on you, but is that what we're all after, is perfection? I like imperfections. I like that people are different. I
think, and relative to the customer experience, and I want to,
don't get me wrong, I don't want a bad experience, but I'm just saying that different experience is what life's all about.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting question for people to think about. Do you want things to be perfect, or do you want them to be, good enough? What's your standard, and why is your standard what it is? I do want to say I'm really excited for Digital Dealer in October. Just a shameless plug, because you're going to be on my panel along with Jason Branham and Austin from Merchants That's going to be a great panel. And for those that tune into the episode here, you don't want to miss that at Digital Dealer, because we're actually going to unpack a bunch of stuff, and they don't all know what questions I'm going to ask them, but relative to some of this stuff. And I would love to see dealers in that audience that participate in some of the questions as well. But I think one of the things I'd like to ask both Jason and Austin about too is what I want to ask you on is, what is a customer looking for today? I don't think it's perfection. But I do believe when I think of myself as a consumer and the last car purchases I've bought, like just the last several cars I've bought, I do have an expectation around how, like, that instant gratification world that we live in. So can I have it? When can I have it? If you tell me it's going to be X, Y, and Z, and then it's X, B, and Z, like, that's going to make me mad. Does it have to be perfect? It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be, if you are setting expectations, whether they're set by your website, you're the dealer, and my website kind of sets some expectations for you, Mr. or Miss Customer. If your salespeople in dialogue, in any kind of communication, doesn't matter what form of omni-channel, right? Any form of communication, if they're setting expectations with me, I just want to be able to trust that. And any compromise to that trust that's essentially increases with fulfilling those things to the customer, but it's compromised if you don't. Do you think that, I mean, you and I talk about it quite often, but are dealers thinking about that enough? And I'll be curious really to see what you guys say on the panel. Are dealers thinking enough about what is the customer really wanting today? Because I feel like a lot of vendors are the ones oftentimes dictating what we're trying to chase as customer experience.
Yeah, of course they do. They have to. But ultimately, they're trying to sell and service as many cars as they can efficiently, right? And as cost effectively as they can. So the breakdown becomes, a dealer is like a small business that can't afford to just hire a giant staff to do everything perfectly or have segmented experts in each area. Because it costs money to have like a delivery department that does a white glove delivery. So I know some dealers do that, but it costs money to do that, right? Or have a big BDC. One of the things dealers turn to us for is because we have a solid process and we follow it really well, and they can sleep better at night and all that, whether it be answering an incoming service call, making a call, or handling inbound sales and service opportunities in a consistent manner, and at a cost effective way. Because at the end of the day, if you bring Strolid in, they expect to see a lift in sales. I talk to Josh and my client success team about this all the time. Are we selling more now that we're engaged? And why not? If we're not, what are the challenges we have? Let's identify that, bring that to our dealers so they understand what they need to do either on their end with their marketing, or what we need to do, frankly, sometimes to adjust on our end to improve results. And that's really what if I'm working with a dealer that their goal is to, continuously improve, we have a great relationship. If they're looking for magic pixie dust to sprinkle on Strolid to double their sales, we're not the right company for you, because it takes teamwork. It takes us working with their team. It takes us looking at a lot of data and trying to understand all of that kind of stuff. So the customer experience part, that's where it starts, Sean, If you don't get, it's like the old saying, you don't have a second chance to make a good first impression. And that's what we do. We try to give that quick, immediate response to your customers, give them that first good impression. However, the challenge becomes, like we've seen over the last 3 years, there's been challenges coming out of everywhere with pandemics and, you can't go to the showroom, and then leads are piling up, and then we're selling like crazy. Then the inventory's gone, and it's just been a roller coaster ride for dealers. The good news for dealers is for the past couple of years, they were making, and some of them still are making, really good gross profits. The challenge is the inventory is starting to pile up now. I was talking to a good buddy of mine the other day that average day supply has gone from like 25 to 51, which is getting back to the old days. You're going to start having to see incentives and stuff, but there is still about half of the manufacturers out there are starting to really pile up. The other half, some of them like Toyota, Honda, Lexus, and BMW and stuff, still have low day supply. So it's interesting what's going on in the world. Then you got a big flood of electric cars coming in. So like all this adversity requires you to empower your people and give them the right information. Like it used to be really easy to run a BDC. You get a call or an email and you call and you try to schedule an appointment. Yeah, the car's always available because if it's not on the lot, we'll go find it. That hasn't been the case. So we had to build in a portal into our phone system that pops up for each dealer that we handle that tells us all of these rules. Like don't schedule an appointment for XYZ car that is still showing up on the website because it's not available, and all kinds of different like rules. And we are empowered. Where we're not empowered, is bad data, to be quite honest with you. Inventory feeds that continuously go out to autotradercars.com and other companies that haven't been available in a long time, or they're still showing up on the dealer's website and they're not available. And because right now availability is a big thing, right? And I think we've gotten we've changed. I don't know if the old days were better. I don't want to sound like that crusty old guy, but it used to be dealers were like, just get them in so I can sell them a car. Nowadays, they're like, don't bring them in unless it's like we have it. And it's like, so that's affected appointment set rates and stuff like that. But we as a company, in the same inbound service, I mean, a lot of dealers and manufacturers have capacity issues. They're 2, 3. We had a dealer that was a month out for service.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then there's some
down technicians or
some of it's that, some of it is just people are holding on to their cars and servicing them more nowadays. So, we have dealers that would prefer to only service their own customers' cars first. We have dealers that don't want to work on off-make cars, which is kind of crazy, unless they sold it, of course, as a used car. But so we have all this intel. And, I just find it hard to believe that AI can understand all of that right now. And maybe in the future it can. Because we're having trouble just gathering it all and putting it in the right places so our people are empowered to actually have the information to answer questions for customers and give them a much better experience,
Yeah, I was reading something yesterday. Just listening to you right now made me think of this phrase that really stuck out to me that was about how the complexity of measurement has outpaced a lot of people's knowledge. And it's not just the complexity of measurement, which can be applied to the sales and business development of your dealership or your company. That complexity of measurement is also relative to marketing conversations, advertising conversations. I mean, it's all over the place. Everything is going so fast and it just keeps getting faster. The AI stuff, digital retailing really didn't blow up quite as fast as I think the people that were building those tools hoped for. But then they got the pandemic and all of them were like, yeah, great. It's a gold rush. But I think you hit on something really important that dealers, I think, really need to be thinking about. I think this needs to be talked about in 20 groups. I think it needs to be talked about in, weekly staff meetings. And that is who in the dealership is actually keeping at least somewhat close to pace of all the things technically that affect the business. Because and we've joked about this many times before. The internet's been with us for a little while now. Why are you guys, and it's not just the car business. We love dealers. And so sometimes it feels like we're being a little critical of them, but it's more meant out of encouragement. Like we love dealers and we want them to win all the time. But boy, the faster and the bigger that the waves come of all this new stuff. And now it's all the AI stuff and everybody wanted to tell you.
I love what you're talking about. Yeah. I love what you're talking about because it's polarizing, right, for dealers now with data. There's just so much data coming at them. What do you do with it all? So, I try to, I have ADD, as I've told you before. So I'm always like, squirrel.
You're not the only one. It's not a bad thing. It's like
I got that from you, by the way. Squirrel.
You're a busy person.
I am very keen on and perceptive to what's urgent, right? And prioritization of the data. I'm a data geek because of, I my teachers used to say that I was lazy when I was a kid. It wasn't that. I just got bored with stuff that I couldn't get an answer to, or I had to spend a ton of time. I like to get the answers quickly. I don't want to waste hours and hours to learn something I can learn in 5 minutes. And so with that said, data does that for you if you read it right, and if it's easy to access. The challenge dealers have today is all this data is sitting in all these different places, and then you get these customer data platforms, and all they're doing is really mapping out all these clicks and all this other stuff, which is just way too much, frankly, for a car dealer to want to digest and understand. They want to know key, performance indicators, right? They don't want to look at it all.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of my buddies I was talking to yesterday owns a group we have, and I told him 110 of his cars, of his 350, didn't have photos. And he's the owner of this group. And he was like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, because they have that somewhere in some system that tells them that. I'm not going to name all the systems because I don't want to put any of them down, but it's another login and another place for someone to go and look at. And unless you have a really well-defined process every morning to go, all right, I got to check my photos, I got to check my notes, I got on the cars, I got to check my pricing, and you do for that. But then you got a whole bunch of other data, like marketing data, Google Analytics are over here, and your lead data is in the CRM. And I kind of understand and empathize with dealers in that regard. So, shameless plug, we're working on a dealer portal, and I'm trying to think up with AI, right? So we have VCons and conservers, and we're taking all the conversational data, we're getting sentiment analysis, all that kind of stuff. But what I like about it is we're ingesting a lot of information into AI that now I can tell AI, this is what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Show me when something gets out of whack, show it to me.
Yeah.
That's what I want as an ADD person. I don't want to have to log in to go find it and spend, I just did an analysis for a dealer in New York that took me an hour. Not because I'm slow. It's because I had to go into different systems to find data, to put the information together and piece it all together. So I think you're spot on. And I think that's what I'm hoping AI can do for me versus answer a phone and talk to a customer. That is so impersonal. That just really scares me for the future of our world.
Yeah.
If we're going to go to that far where I don't want to talk to a customer because, the emotional bag, it's going to cause me pain because they're going to reject me, or they're going to hang up, or they're going to be mean to me. And let's let a robot do it. Or it's going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Sean, I don't know. Maybe there is definitely place for automations. There's definitely place for tedious things like, cleaning up data and things like that. But to talk to a customer, gosh, that's really scary.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode, my brother, because I'm telling you that this device in the hands of all of our children, you and I have, kids that are out of the nest. You still have one in the nest. Our kids grew up in this internet age, and I'll try to not make this a full episode within the episode, but that very much concerns me too, because the younger generations have been taught to find companionship through this kind of thing. And then they find out that really it comes with a big, big, big package of loneliness, and they don't know how to deal with it. And solitude is uncomfortable for them. And I'll cap it with this and we can carry on, but this is relevant, and dealers should be listening to what you're just saying here. I was on, my road trip with the wife through this summer, and we went into, sorry people, I eat Taco Bell once in a while. We were somewhere in Oklahoma, I think. Anyway, we were starving. So we pull in, I walk into this Taco Bell, and there are no people. There are no customers eating. There is no one behind the counter. There's just two kiosks for me to, and I'm sure people have seen this now because all these big corporations, it is about how do they make more money if they've been forced to implement a minimum wage that's too hard for them to pull off in that particular area. There's a lot of different business decisions to be made, but I want to talk about the experience. It was impersonal, and for a person who's now in their early 50s, I hated everything about it. I did not see a human being until I had used a giant one of these to say, I want a taco and I want a burrito and, I want a Pepsi. And then they bring out my items, and that's it. I don't even know if this gal said anything to me. It felt so other planet, other world to me, and I hated everything about it because I believe that we as human beings, we are literally made to connect with people. There's this. You don't have to be friends with every single person.
No, it's absolutely the ability. Human connection is a human need. It's not.
Where do you stop in the car?
It's not something we can live without. It's not. Look what COVID did to our kids when they were stuck in the house during school and stuff. It's all kinds of depression and drug use and all kinds of stuff came out of it. Like this, I feel like the last 3 years were in this giant social experiment. Because can artificial intelligence do things that human can't? Of course. It can ingest a shit ton of data, excuse my French, and make sense of it faster than a human can. That's good. But what's not good about it is when you start replacing human beings. And, I know there are people listening to this going, oh, this guy's company's in trouble because he's not going to get on board and he's going to be like Blockbuster Video and he's going to go out of business. I'm not saying I'm not paying attention to it, and I'm not saying we're not using it. And I'm not saying I don't want my business to be more efficient. What I'm saying is I would never want a robot talking to my customer. Straight and simple. And if it's a digital retailing tool and a customer wants to use it all, I think it's like still 4% of people actually hit the buy it now button and buy it online. And you're talking about a lot of Teslas and stuff like that. Human beings don't want it, but they'll do it.
Yeah.
So where is customer satisfaction going then? If we're just saying this is the best we can give you as a robot to do the work that a human being used to do and could do, that could smile to you and ask you how your day's going and stuff like that, and have a real conversation in a connection with a real human being. That to me is what Ira Rosenberg did for years when he ran the Ira Group up here in Boston. He came out, he kissed babies and shook hands and smiled to everybody. And he wasn't, an easy guy to work for. But when he was out there talking to employees and talking to customers, you thought he was like Santa Claus. You know what I mean? So like those kinds of guys I admire. And I've been around a lot of them, and it's because they have this genuineness to them to connect with people and connect with their communities and connect with, their business and their business partners and all that kind of stuff. And like, we're going to hide from all that and just let robots do it all for us. God bless us if that happens. I mean, God, it's I think that's like the essence of life. I mean, there are some people that I've met that are larger than life. You ever hear that comment, Sean? Larger than life. And so those people I'm attracted to, not sexually, but I'm attracted to them personally. I think they're dynamic and they're, and it's like that could be gone in the future.
Well, so you're unwrapping a bunch of stuff that I love. So what you're talking about in getting to know a person, right?
Yeah.
And these attributes of a personality, these the body language, all these different signs, facial expression, all these things. Mm-hmm. People I just saw a thing on LinkedIn. Somebody that we both know talking about, something that sounds cliche, but it's true. People hate to be sold, but they like to buy things. And then when you make it easy for people to buy things, what's usually part of that formula?
Well, so the argument, though, Sean, is that digital retailing. The argument is digital retailing tools make it easier for people to buy things. However, listen, it's simple. I said it earlier. I like digital retailing tools. I think there's a place for them. I like AI. I think there's a place for it. I think there's a lot of, with all this mounds of data, it's too much for a human person to, but the human connection can't go away. And some people probably listen to this saying, well, I hate talking to a salesperson. Those people make up about 12% of the population. They're C-type, usually engineers or someone that's like highly compliant. I mean, if you've ever done the DISC profiling, 60% of the people, they just want to be able to trust the person they're talking to. So when I think about that, I think, whatever. I mean, you can believe me or not, but my sole goal is to help dealers and to help my employees. And if you've been around me long enough, you know that that's genuine and true. And so that's why we have referrals, and that's why we have repeat business, is because I try to go out of my way to help as many people as I can. At some points as we grow our company, it gets harder for me. There's no question. However, that's still in my core of who I am. And you know that when you're talking to certain people. So some people are bad. There are bad doctors. There are bad attorneys. There are bad salespeople. There are bad teachers. There are bad, athletes. And so you can't say, well, because there is some bad, we want to make everyone perfect because we don't want to deal with that bad.
Yeah.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, Taco Bell could go out of business. I can't even remember, no offense, but I can't even remember the last time I've eaten at one of them. But if they're that stupid where they're going to put kiosks into their business to replace human beings, I mean, maybe that's how they get down to a 99-cent burrito, I guess, right? They don't have to pay.
Yeah. And not just them, McDonald's. So there's other fast food restaurants that have started doing that, where the humans are gone and you go in and you've been taught. Thank you, Apple and Android. You've been taught how to use this. Now we put a giant one on there. Pick taco, pick burrito. I know that we've just got a few more minutes on this episode, and I want it. Yeah. I've known you, so I know what you were just describing about how your, approach and what matters to you. I very much know that about you. If you were the person, if I had an opportunity and I was going to work with somebody at a dealership, their digital retailing tool, or Vinny's my guy, right? Whether you're the GM or you're a salesperson, I'm going to be like, I want to talk with Vinny, man. He's a Boston dude. He's a totally dyed in the wool Patriots fan. I got to talk to this guy.
And I am a car guy, by the way. I'm a car guy too. I was spent.
You are totally a car guy and have been for decades.
I've been told by a bunch of people, you're not a car guy anymore. I'm like, yeah, I am. I feel that, I empathize. I feel what dealers go through every day. I know what it's like to be up against a number that you're trying to hit, and have the manufacturer and, big groups. I work for a big group, have them breathe down your neck, make sure you get to these numbers. It's stressful, and I want to try and help them. That's really what the goal is. So
you literally built a company because you're a car guy. For car guys and gals.
Right. And gals.
That's why your company exists. And I would say that even things we're talking about in this episode, the technology has come so fast since the dawn of the internet, which I always say, I know this isn't technical to industry terms, but I always felt like that's okay, internet was 1.0 version of massive change, the fastest and the biggest change that you're going to see in the car business. 2.0 for me was social media, because it blew open the doors of transparency, right? And I don't know what
human connection through a phone, but it was human connection.
Yep. And then now we have all of the digital retailing, and we have AI coming in. The point I used to, and I still say this sometimes in presentations, dealers have been dealing with this technology lasagna for years and years, and they just keep layering the same stuff. Meat, cheese, pasta sauce, meat, cheese, pasta sauce, layer. And after a while, they don't even know that they have duplicate and triplicate of things they don't even need, because it's so hard to keep up with. And you absolutely are a car guy, because you care about the car guys and gals that are dealing with that. And let me just say this, and I know it's shameless plug, but whatever. This is our podcast. We do what we want. This isn't a lie. Call me out on the stuff that I've lied about to dealers. Yeah, your company, and I'm not saying that to you, I'm saying that to the audience.
No, I get it.
Yeah. So your company, Strolid, literally simplifies a whole list of it. Literally makes me think, you know what? I'm going to actually prep a podcast episode for that, because think about all of the things that dealers are like, how do I get my head around all of these things that are coming in? Because so many of these things are attached to the customer experience, yes, but in more detail, the sales experience, the variations and nuance within the sales experience. Where did the lead come from? Are they off the phone? Off the phone from what source? Did they come in through a direct message? What source? Did they come in off the website? Well, what was it? A trade-in lead? Was it they came off the SRP? There's so much variation, and the dealers are really good at what they do. But sometimes, and all of your dealers, I would say, we got to a point where we realized we needed this help. And it doesn't just help us have a better, much more consistent sales process, which helps, of course, all of your sales effort, your service effort, but it also gives them people that understand how to work through some of these technology challenges that are very, very difficult. Very difficult.
It's funny. And so I'll just use this last few minutes to speak about some of the technology we're working on, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm this old school guy that doesn't believe in technology. Because I have a 6-person engineering team and a CTO, and we're building tech. What I'm trying to do is exactly what you're saying, Sean. And I know others have tried it with dashboards and things like that. But how do I feed my dealers critical information at the right time? And you can do that with AI by ingesting all these different data points that are on all these different places. But it takes somebody that understands the industry to build it in a way that it's going to give them the information that they need to see at the right time, not all of it at once or forgetting to look at it. Like, something that pops up and says, hey, you need to take photos of your cars.
Yes.
Because there's a used car manager is like, I'm buried over here and I got this guy, my owner, yelling at me because some stupid BDC company told them that I only had 110 photos, but he doesn't understand me and all this other stuff. Well, it's funny. I'm going through this with my own team internally. How much can one person handle? We neglect things because we're typically overworked and we have too much on our plate. And so some of the stuff we neglect is looking at the data.
Yep.
Because it's not urgent. It's important, but it's, I do the four quadrant training with my management team all the time. It's important, but it's not urgent. That's quadrant 3. I try to spend as much time now in quadrant 3 as I can instead of quadrant 1. So Josh would be a great example of someone in quadrant 1 all the time, right? That works for me. And, Shauna, I'm trying to pull her out of quadrant 1 a little bit more. And, and Thomas, and we have leadership calls and meetings, because that stuff's important too, is to actually examine what you're doing instead of just running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah.
So how can we do that faster? There's so much data to ingest. I just told you it took me an hour to pull up enough information to show a dealer some information that I needed to share with them. How do I get that information quicker? And you can do that with our new technologies. We have all the conversational data coming in and out. Now we have email data coming in and out, text data coming in and out, all tied to a customer. Now we can kind of understand, did that go well? Was the customer happy? Was the customer frustrated? We can ingest all the inventory and say, your inventory levels are lower than they were last month. Your lead volumes are lower than they were last month, which correlates with the inventory level. You don't have photos on your cars, which might boost the phone calls and all that kind of stuff that's going on in the dealership all day long. It's impossible to pull all that data. I don't care how good a dashboard is. If you got 12 of them to log into, it's like brain damage. And I'm not saying we're going to be successful at every problem that a dealer has, but we want to be able to give our dealers information that we can give them that's actionable, that they don't have to go and find in 6 or 7 different places. So that's our goal with our technology. And we're using AI. Even though we're not replacing humans, we're using AI to give us information. Maybe even I'll give you a quick example. We can summarize a conversation, Sean. So instead of my people typing the information into the CRM very shortly, probably in the next quarter, we're going to be able to push that conversation right into the notes section of the CRM.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Because that's time. That's someone's time typing. Plus, they don't even type as good as the summarization is. They're not going to put all that information in there. So that's a huge win for us. So we're looking for AI to do that kind of stuff for us and we're feeding AI. We're not building a robot. There's a lot of them out there. It's kind of like digital retailing tools. If you're building a digital retailing tool right now, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be, because there's like 50 of them. And only maybe a handful of them are going to succeed, maybe a 10 or whatever. But why build a robot? We got the data. We can feed it to any robot.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I know that your company is already built on technology. I know you said about building on technology in the first place, and that you're still doing that. I don't think a lot of people understand that about your business. So it sounds like you guys are more than happy to be right there where the new stuff comes around the corner, and you guys are getting ready and prepared for that stuff. We're going to dig more into that on our panel session at the Digital Dealer, which is going to be great. This is a perfect place because I see a parking spot right up close to the building, which is what we're always looking at. So we're going to pull into that one on this episode.
Yeah, a lot of stuff for future episodes potentially. So.
Yeah, for sure. If you like or love or none of the above, hey, great. We still want to hear from you. This is the Dealer Insights podcast. It gets better when you give us comments and questions and feedback and recommendations. So some people will drop them in the comments, especially on the YouTube piece. But if you don't over there, you can always send an email to us at info@strolid.com. That's STROLID. Until next time, stay strong and solid. You'll never miss. I'll see you next time, Vinny.
See you, Sean.